What's up, YouTube? Thanks for tuning in to today's episode. Today we're going to talk about why patience is important, what it's like to finally get promoted into a bartender role, and one of the few times that I butted heads with some customers and refused to give them what they want. What's up, YouTube? Thanks for joining us here on today's Top Shelf Talk. Here you're going to learn about the fundamentals of building business through the lens of bartending, where you can learn how to build brand, drive traffic, and listen to learn to some of the best people in the industry, from bartenders to bar managers and even our prospective bartenders of the future. Before we get started, don't forget to hit us up on Instagram and give us a follow on Twitter. And now for the episode you've been waiting for. What's up, Top Shelf Nation? Thanks for joining us here today for episode 3. I got my buddy here, Kendyl, with us today. Kendyl, me and him go, about 7 or 8 years back. I want to say I made him about 2012, 13, somewhere around there. And he came from like the ground up. I mean, talk about working from the trenches. This guy was in the trenches with us every single day, holding every single door open to, eventually made his way into the bar, and now he's moving on from there. Kendyl, how are you doing today?
I'm good, man. I'm super excited to talk some business with you.
Awesome. Hey, man. Really been fun watching you evolve over the last few years that we haven't worked together, and just see how much you've grown in your positions and where you're headed, dude. It's really exciting times, man. I'm really proud of you.
Just looking back at that, man, that was crazy. I can't believe that, like, I'm sitting here now, and I know it sounds cliche, but like, dude, almost 10 years ago, it's insane from where we started.
Dude, insane is probably the only word that could really catch it. Really.
Dude, there were some nights where it was like that, dude.
Well, Kendyl, why don't you give us your origin story? Give us a little bit of background, what kind of person you were growing up, and how you came into the business.
Cool. So to start off, I was born and raised here in Sacramento. I lived in Fair Oaks. The main area that people knew Fair Oaks for was the chicken park. I mean, it's the Fair Oaks Village. It's the same area, but basically it's like right next to Gold River where the Applebee's used to be that we used to work at. Grew up and born and raised here, and simple hobbies to even start was like just fishing off the American River, bike riding, jet skiing, motocross, all kinds of stuff like that. Man, I'm definitely the type of person to be like, hey, let's go try something new. Let's get out there. Let's make an effort. Sun goes up, sun comes down, kind of thing. Like that was my goal for life, man.
So that was like your area growing up. I mean, that's like your home, huh?
Yeah, dude. Literally, I was born there, raised there. I'm 28 now, and not that it's a bad thing, but I'm still here in Sacramento. Like I feel like I've had a really good life here, and my parents raised me, really well, and I feel like I'm a pretty decent person, and I feel like the friends and family that I have surrounding me and the city and the environment is just it's a really good place to be, and I'm super excited to be here now.
Awesome, dude. What kind of kid were you in high school? I mean, were you like more of a social type? Were you more introverted? What do you think?
Oh, that's a tough one. So I'll tell you what, man, I'll be straight to the point with you. Freshman year was rough. And I know that's usually how it goes for a lot of people, but I was about, just to give you some perspective, I was about 5'4", and I was like 200 and I want to say like 30 something pounds. Dude, I was a pretty heavy kid. And of course that didn't help out with the social standings with people. Of course, the whole cliche jock section and the cheerleading squad and all these people, everyone had their different cliques and everything. But I'm not gonna lie to you, the freshman year and the sophomore year was a rough start. But going into junior and senior year, that was something that like definitely made me feel a lot better and a lot more open to talk to people and be more socially accepted.
So were you clearly you were overweight going into like high school, freshman year.
Oh yeah.
I mean, was that something that like, just seeing that kind of like, social classes and like kind of pushing you out and exiling you, did that like fuel you and motivate you to like get into shape, get yourself fit, or what?
Dude, literally, it was freshman and sophomore year. I was at a point where when I was entering high school, obviously in those 2 years, it was just it was a perspective where I was literally confused. Like, I hated to say it, but I didn't know where I was. Like, I was trying to find out who my friends were and who was a good group to be around, who wasn't. But like, to answer your question, it was mainly the transition to junior year and senior year is when I started to, like, obviously as the years went by, I started to develop this mentality of like, hey, you know what? Like, is this the way I want to live my life? Is this the way that do I want to continuously being in the shade, in the corners, kind of like, I don't want to talk to people because obviously I don't have the social confidence or the self-confidence to talk to people and make friends, etc. So when I got to that point, I just started like going for it. I just kind of started putting my toe in the water, testing the waters, and saying, hey, this is something that is actually working for me. People are conversing with me. People are wanting to, ask me out to hang out with them, etc. So I think it was just more of a really bad self-confidence start, which obviously junior year and senior year led to a more confident years, for lack of better words.
That's super interesting because it sounds like you were always that, extroverted person, always wanted to socialize, but you didn't have the confidence, but you needed to find a way to build that. And that's what fueled you. Wow, super interesting there.
Finding it on my own was not easy. Obviously my mom, not obviously, but my mom is, she's worked with children her whole life, children with autism, special needs. So she used to be a speech pathologist, and she worked all her way up to being a director for a local school district. So that she was definitely able to help me get through those years. And obviously I would like ask her for advice, and, when I always had bad days, and she would recommend to me like, hey, try this instead. Maybe it's not as bad as you think it is, because it's building up in your head, obviously anxiety, all that kind of stuff that kids go through, especially through high school. But I can't express like how important it is to take that extra step, get out of your comfort zone and try something new. And even though it may not feel comfortable at first, once you try it and you get positive results back, it's a life-changing experience, dude.
That's like a really interesting market maturity that you had there at such a young age that most people don't get till they're like in their later 20s. I mean, there's something that eventually clicks in every person that says, maybe I should try something new. Maybe I need to get out of my comfort zone. But you found that early. And that was like a huge transformative moment for you. That's awesome.
I'm glad I did it, man. Like if I hadn't, I don't know where I would be, but just sitting here talking to you specifically now is just like, I don't have the best vocabulary skills, but I mean, I feel like if I had continued down that road, it would not have ended well with me. And obviously with the encouragement of friends and family, they were a huge part of my life, a huge, super big help too. But I felt like if I didn't have that to push me and get better, then I just felt like I would have ended up in a path that I wish I wouldn't have been down.
Dude, that's amazing.
Yeah. So
tell me about that transition out of high school, because I feel like I met you not too long out of high school, right? That's when kind of me and you hooked up and started to get to know each other, work together.
So the first year out of high school, I went to Sierra College and I majored in criminal justice at Sierra College. And so when I first started Sierra College, my first semester, that's when I applied to this place called Sky High Sports. It's a trampoline park. And
trampoline place. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. It was a great place to work, dude. I loved it. The best perk about it was the staff. They're all the same age. And you get to jump for free whenever you want. You get to come in. It's great exercise, a lot of fun. They had dodgeball and all that kind of stuff. So it was a great place to work. I was there for about 3 years. And then I started to realize that I had more – there were better opportunities to make more money. And a job is not always about the money. It primarily is, because that's how you make a living, et cetera. But it's also about like the relationships that you build, the things that you see in management, et cetera. But I wanted to transition to something where I was like, hey, I found out through a friend of mine. I don't know if you remember, there's a couple of people that used to work there at Applebee's. But anyways, I wanted to transition into something that my friend told me about that was like, hey, make good money, start here. It's super easy. If you can talk to people, you know exactly what you're doing, learn the menu, et cetera, you can start making that transition up. I was like, hey, why not give it a shot? So that's when I applied, and I'm so glad I applied, dude. I mean, but yeah, I think you and I finally like met each other. I think it was 2013.
Okay.
Either 2012 or 2013, something like that.
Sounds about right.
But I think that 2 other managers had interviewed me before you, and then that's when I had finally met you as the GM.
Okay. So give our listeners here a little bit of context on kind of that first impression of me when we met. What were your thoughts? And then I guess what's the delta look like from when we met that first time versus the impression of or what you think of me now. Because I'll be honest, when we met 2012, 2013, I was a completely person back then too. You know, I was only a year into my GM position. You know, going from a bar manager to where you're focusing on one part of a restaurant to a GM position where now you're, you know, the entire restaurant's your scope, and then you're actually developing the people that, you know, work in those different sectors and those different components of the restaurant. That was a big transition for me too. But I know I was a way different person back then, 2012, 2013, than I was even 2017, you know what I mean? 2016, 2017.
Sure. When we first started, I remember hearing Tyson, and Tyson was like the name for because of GM, because when I applied, you were obviously established as the GM. But the two managers that I spoke with, they spoke highly of you as well. And so that alone, the whole teamwork aspect of management, again, you know, this is me being what I want to say I was like almost 19, 20, something like that, almost 21. So obviously there was some minimal amount of maturity at that level for me personally. But with that being said, it was like hearing the words GM or general manager, I think, okay, this is top dog. This guy's got to know what he's doing. He's obviously intelligent. He worked his way up, etc. And like literally, like that was when I heard your name and I met you for the first time. That was my perspective of you. And this is not something that, because we work together and, you know, obviously we're friends.
That was before you even saw me, right?
Yeah, I haven't even met you before, but like I heard your name, management had spoke of you. This is going to be your staff, your role, etc. Like they spoke of you, and
because 2012, 2013, like I was only 27, 28 at that age. You know what I mean? Like
yeah. So that's my age right now.
So yeah. So you hear
like,
the name, you hear the name, and people talk about you. You get this picture of this like older, more experienced guy. You know, it's kind of what you're describing there. Like must know what he knows, shit, know what he's talking about.
Dude, absolutely. And it's interesting because I'm 28 myself. And like, if someone had spoken to me about that way, obviously I have, you know, a level of self-confidence on myself, but hearing somebody else speak of you in that manner, it just kind of seems like, oh, wow, that's the impression that someone else has of me, you know, obviously besides the fact that I hadn't met you at that time. But that's the initial perspective that I had when I went into the business with you. But when I finally met you, dude, I'm like, hey, my name's Tyson. I'm like, dude, like it was almost like the military. I've never been in the military and I will never pretend to be, but I was almost like straight up, you know, hey, I'm here to help you kind of thing. So, like seriously, because obviously this is not only from the other managers at the time, but from yourself as well, because you're above them. It gives the impression of like, hey, dude, this guy's in charge of me. This guy is, you know, in charge of my future. You know, this guy could fire me at any moment. Obviously, you know, that's not as simple as that, but this guy could fire me at any moment. He could reprimand me. He could write me up, you know? So it's like, it's a sense of fear, that you have, which is great, which I really think that at a very minuscule level, employees should have, to their manager. I'm not saying to be feared, but to have that sense of, hey, if I'm not doing my job, if I'm not meeting these requirements, then this is the individual, or these are the group of individuals that are going to come after me. Like, hey, it basically whack your hand with a stick. Hey, you know, stay up to par, make sure you're doing your job. If you don't, we're going to keep an eye on that. But yeah, man, I just, when I first heard your name and I first met you for the first time, like literally you were the guy that knew all the answers. Anytime I had a question, I came to you. And I'll never forget when you first started explaining to me in the office, how again, you know, this is fresh for me because I've never worked in a restaurant at that point. But hearing all the numbers that you would talk about, all the equations that you had for these numbers and how to get these, it was just like mind blowing for me. I mean, believe it or not, I'm not good with numbers at all. So just hearing that is just like, wow, this guy's making all this happen. Now it's, you know, it's up to me, like the grunt worker, to be like, hey, this guy's giving us direction. We need to make this job happen, you know?
So it's super interesting that you bring that up. At that time, I remember that kind of reminds me too. I was like super analytical. Let me look at the numbers. I needed like statistical analysis of everything. Like nothing really made sense until I saw the numbers that helped define the situation. You know what I mean? Kind of gave a little bit more color to the picture, I guess you could say. And I'll be the first one to, I guess, admit that, you know, especially with my first few years as a GM, I relied too heavily on those numbers. It's like in baseball. I mean, you get that you got those two different, the two different fans. You have like the new fans that are all about like sabermetrics, statistics, advanced stats. You know what I mean? That are like, that's how they understand the game. And then you have the old school guys that are like, fuck your stats. It's all about the eye test. You know what I mean? Like,
how's his swing? How's his form?
Yeah. So, and I think that was a big transition. I was the GM there for about 5 years, and that was probably the biggest transition that I made from, when I started in 2011, being so reliant on the numbers to where I was able to make that transition eventually into more about the people, the culture, the relationships. And that's kind of what, the scales tipped. When I started, I was 26 years old when I first became the GM. And, I was 31 when I eventually, stepped down from being the GM. But that 26 to 31 age, that's a big difference where I was like, I needed the stats drove the business because, that's what my bosses are looking at. So let me, motivate these guys in a way that's going to make the restaurant and make me look good versus, it's just funny to see how those skills tip over time. So, and it's interesting that you bring that up. You had always been that guy that never seemed fully relaxed around me. Like, I knew what kind of person you were because I could see how you interacted with the staff. Super friendly, very social, super relaxed. And then as soon as I walked over, and even if it was like a super casual conversation, like, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Dude, I was stiff as a board, dude.
Always standing at attention, and I'm just like,
dude, literally, and that's why I brought it up earlier, man. It was it was the military aspect. It was just a position where, like, I felt like once you came around, it was like, again, not in a fearful manner, but just like, hey, this guy expects the job done. We're not getting it done, like, because obviously it happens in every restaurant. But there'd be a time where I'd sit and I'd kind of lean and just kind of like, hey, dude, like, my job seems done at this point. Obviously my staff members are conversing with me. We're having a great time. And then all of a sudden, bam, management comes around. Everyone needs to get back to work kind of thing. But also it's also like the way my dad raised me, because obviously my grandpa, but my dad's dad was in the military. He's a Marine Corps.
okay.
So my dad obviously has.
From. You keep referencing the military. So I was going to ask, do you have like a family history in the military? Like,
yeah. So both my grandparents were in the military. My grandfather was in the Air Force on my mother's side, and then my father's side was the Marine Corps. And so with that being said, I feel that I had a sense of military background because my dad grew up with that. He constantly moved. He's moved, I think, more than 10, 12 times around the country because that's where my grandfather was stationed. And then same with my mother, and then my mother and my father met at Travis Air Force Base.
Okay.
And so that's where they had met from there. Anyways, yeah, with that sense of that background, my dad was always, he wasn't hard on me at all, but he always made sure that, hey, you're doing this right. You're doing what's right for you. You're doing what's right for society. Like, do the right thing always. Like, don't lie, don't cheat, just always do the right thing. So, and obviously he raised me to a point where just make sure you're following those rules and, like, treat people the way you want to be treated, et cetera. Give respect where it's due. Just the whole concept of, like, growing up was that. So with that, like, burned into my head, it was just like, when I saw someone above me, I had to respect that. And that was my way of showing my respect, of being like, oh, hey, like, what can I do for you? Like, just being there to help out,
That's amazing, dude. So we worked together for probably about 4 to 5 years, I would say. What's your dad's name?
4 to 5 years. My dad's name?
Yeah.
My dad's name is Jack.
Jack, dude.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming your parents are going to watch this at some point. So Jack, I got to tell you, over those 4 to 5 years, I worked with a lot of people, and they always start out with that certain level of respect. He never broke stride. I mean, we're talking like 4 to 5 solid years that I can never get this kid to fully relax around. We have like, sidebar conversations, but I mean, when it was like game on and we were on the field, never broke stride. It was always like, yes, sir, full speed, whatever you need, I'm there. I mean, I pushed you pretty hard too, dude. Like, I'm not going to lie. Like, I pushed you.
No, but see, hard. I'm glad you did though. Like, I genuinely mean that, because I'm the type of person where if you don't give direction, then I tend to not slack off, but I'm the tend to lose focus of the primary objectives, those objective key results that need to be met and so on. So like for me, when I first started off at Applebee's hosting, obviously we were given the task of hosting, seating people, greeting people, et cetera, helping out the servers when we can, but also like, hey, at the time where we weren't busy, you're going to bust tables as well. It's a team effort, which is great. But like at that time, it's like, it's almost a sense of like ADHD where if I'm not constantly doing something, keep my mind busy, I'm over here like, tapping my fingers, tapping my toe, looking around, oh, squirrel kind of thing. Like that was me. So I feel like the start for that of making sure that I was busting tables, I was doing something that was always keeping busy. Like that was a great start for me to start learning how to grow up in that or how to move up in those ranks of serving, et cetera.
Yeah. And one of the challenges I always try to explain to people when they're trying to develop in a restaurant industry too, I have little sidebar conversations about, what's your biggest challenge? And it's always trying to keep people focused and trying to keep people busy. And I always try to explain to them, like, look, like when I hire people, I hire them based on their personalities. Cause I could teach anybody how to host. I could teach anyone how to serve, bartend. I mean, you could teach, anybody could pour a Long Island iced tea. I could pour a Long Island iced tea. But I'm not the funnest guy to talk to when I'm playing, right? And there's a million other people that aren't either. So I hire on the personality because I don't know how to develop that. I don't think you can develop that. You either have it or you don't.
Yeah.
But, you get 40, 50, 60 of these kinds, these social type of personalities, you put them in the same room together, you're going to get 40 to 50 different people talking to each other and over socializing, it's just, it's a byproduct, so it's not a bad thing because this is what you hire. This is what you wanted. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you just want it to be directed towards the guests, not towards each other. But, sometimes you're in a lower volume, hour, days, even a full restaurant altogether. It is what it is. But
I think that ties really well into just the social aspect of bartending, serving, sort of the whole service industry aspect. Is that, like you said, directing that open personality, that open-mindedness, and being able to adapt. I'm sure we'll get to that later, but being able to adapt to who's in front of you, I think, is something that I do really, really well. I don't know how I was able to do this. Maybe it's just because I've been in the industry for 8+ years and I've started to learn how people tick and how people come in and how they talk, and it's like, it's almost like a chameleon, if you will, except for colors, you're blending in with people's personalities. Like at the moment someone sits down, you can clearly see it on their face. You can see who's in a bad mood, who doesn't want to be talked to, or who's like, hey, I'm here to have a good time. Obviously the fresh 21-year-olds coming in, and especially with the women, they're, big old I'm 21 sash on there. Obviously they don't want some grumpy ass bartender that's just sitting there like, what do you want? Get out kind of thing. Like, obviously they want someone that's going to hype them up, give them that great time, give them that great experience.
It's a fucking party, right? Turn it into
exactly,
a party,
dude, literally. So when you were saying, obviously when we're slower at times, like, between the times of, for all the viewers that are watching, for the times from, in the restaurant industry from like 2 to 4, that's your downtime. That's the time to recuperate, get silverware done, etc. But also it's the time where like you want to converse with people. You want to converse with your staff. Hey, how was your shift? Did you make good money, etc.
Like
but then when it's
exactly.
Yeah, you're coming down from the lunch rush and like just decompressing, de-stressing, debriefing your management team and what happened.
Talking about that asshole table. Did you see that?
That goddamn Karen over there. Oh, dude, I've seen my share of Karens. I'm sure you have too, being a manager, dude.
Oh, yeah.
Dude, I'm going to bring up one. I'll make it quick. I'll bring up that one situation, dude. I'll never forget it. I think it was like, oh, shoot. It was in the 20s. I think it was like table 24. I'll never forget it. Table 24 was that booth. And it was the middle of a dinner rush, and I was serving them, but they had complained about every single thing that we had brought them. Like nothing was going to make them happy. But you could clearly see they were just there to bring down the bill as harshly and as almost to like basically the tab is taken care of kind of situation. But I'll never forget, like, you stood your ground because you took care of like everything except for like these 2 items. And I remember, I'll never forget it, word for word. You said, I hear what you're saying, I understand, but she had basically said, I want these taken off the bill. even though you had taken off like 75% of the bill, and you said word for word, I respectfully decline your offer, or respectfully decline what you're asking me. And I was like, in my head, I was busting the table, but I wanted to be like, slow clap, like, hit him, dude, get him under the ribs, kind of thing.
I remember that too, what you're talking about. Yeah, no, I remember that. I remember exactly what you're talking about. You're right. She was like nitpicking every little thing. Nothing was going to make her happy. And I think I was even like crouching down. I think the husband was out at the truck or something like that. The lady was just like, demanding everything to be comped. And I was like, after comping like 75%, I knew the 25% that I left on the bill was right. I knew he did not put that up. And I remember, I think it was something like, I respectfully decline your request or something like that.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. You know,
I remember like she pulled out like a wad of $100 bills or something like that. And like, get up to walk away. And as soon as I walk away, I turn around and look at you, and you were just like, give me one of those. Like, I think we were sitting back to back in the aisle at that point. You were taking a order. You were just like, I did not see that coming, man.
Like that one dude in the corner, just like you did something hard work or something like that, and all of a sudden you look over and you're like that, and they were the same concept, respectful, and it's just like you know, pounding your chest kind of thing. Dude, I'll never forget that. It's been 8 years. You look
shocked, dude. You look shocked.
I was like, I cannot believe.
That was like the nicest way I could think of to say, like, fuck off, dude.
Oh, no, literally. And I feel for the people that work in the service industry, but also, like, this is also a message for the people that don't work in the service industry, even though the situation that we just spoke of may not seem like that big of an issue or that big of a win, you know, in our eyes. But trust me, dude, just being in service industry, I love the job. You know what I mean? I've been doing it for a long time. I love it. And I'll keep doing it. But it was just at a point where it was just, it was frustrating. And also, but seeing that one little win that we could get from someone, from our management backing us up and be like, hey, like, nope, sorry, this is your bill. We've already done enough for you. And it was just, it's nice to see that when the situations unfold, even though it was rare for us, it's nice to see that because most of the time we're just pleasing people, even though we could be 100% in the right and they are 100% in the wrong. We're just still going to do it because it's, you know, it saves face. It's the company. We don't want to put obviously the Yelp reviews is super important, but also like perspective from a perspective from being I'm not gonna say from being a mature adult's perspective, but like it doesn't, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter who was right. It doesn't matter. It's just, you know what? Hey, do what's going to make them happy. Even if it was taken off the rest of that 25%, it's just, dude, do what makes them happy, get them to come back, keep business flowing. So that's the business side of it. But like,
that's 99.99999%.
I was going to say that's most of it.
You approach it. But there's a way to ask for things too. Like there's a way to complain. There's a way to say like,
oh, absolutely,
I think you guys fucked up, or I didn't like this.
Sure.
They were not taking the right approach. It was like finger in my face. Like I remember the husband was like acting out of control.
Yeah.
And then they were playing parts. Like I like to think I'm
sure they practiced it.
Read people. And you can tell I kind of got this idea that they were scripted. So I was just like, that's when I kind of like called their bluff on the whole thing. And I was like, and I knew you didn't fuck up. I knew I didn't fuck up. So I protected what I knew we didn't fuck up.
Sure.
So there's a certain time where you absolutely have to go to battle for your employees. And you have to be like, no, you know what I mean? Sometimes that means like comping everything, giving them what they want, but going up to your staff and just being like, I know you didn't fuck up, dude. I just need to make sure they leave happy.
Exactly.
But this one, I just knew there was something else going on.
You're like, this one? No, I know. We had to do something.
They ended up dining and dashing on that one, too. I think at the end, they ended up like
I wouldn't be surprised if that's how it ended. I would not be surprised.
Because I remember that. I think I remember that confirmation of like them walking out on the bill being like, I knew they were just fucking trying to eat for free. You know what I mean?
Seriously.
Had nothing to do with us or the restaurant or the server or anything like that. It was just they were wanting to eat for free. And that's why the husband left, because he fired up the truck, waiting for her to
Yep. Exactly. To come running out, pick her up on the passenger, just take off. Now, God, it's just.
Damn it, I remember that.
Shoot. Yeah.
Still feels like a win, though.
Dude, literally, I still, that's why I remember it so much. I just remember the first time seeing that, and I was just like I was just, my guy, finally, standing up, and God, like a win, finally. But.
God, I'm glad you brought that up, because that's one of like very few scenarios that I remember too. So
yeah,
You know,
And
when you see 200 to 300 tables a day, there's not too many that stand out over a 13-year span. But that one definitely
sure.
stood out.
Dude, there's a handful that stand out for sure, but that was one I'll never forget just because, again, it may not seem like the biggest win, but just at the time, just from constantly, you know, and this is not that it's a bad thing, you know, because you don't want to ruin people's experiences, and that's generally what the whole point of being in a restaurant is about. But man, just after constantly taking care of people's bills because, you know, oh, this steak, why did my steak, you know, take 20 minutes to come out when I ordered it well done? It's like, you just answered your own question because it's well done. It takes time for that. For God, I'm not going to go into it, but it takes time for that steak to grill, you know? He's looking at his watch 5 minutes later. I ordered a steak, you know, it's just, it sucks because at some point I was telling my coworkers, I wish that it was like a law that people had to work in this line of industry for like 6 months plus, if not a year. It's like, dude, it's like the military. Go in the military, serve your time, get out, you know? It's like,
you need perspective.
Dude, literally. It's like, so when you start going into, you know, restaurants and even if it's just a quick deli shop or Taco Bell or, you know, fast food, sit down, whatever it may be, it's like you will then have a better understanding of how our restaurants operate during the rushes, during downtimes, etc.
It's insane, man. I mean, there's just so many different like moving parts to systems and processes that, unless you're like there and you can like see the behind the scenes, you know, point of view on the whole thing, you'll never get it. Like, you know, a 2-top versus a 20-top are not processed the same way.
When I was hosting, man, I had a situation where I'd literally seat a table of 2. There's a table of 2 that opened. 2 seats at a table. That's that simple. Table of 2 comes up. Oh, I served them. This lady comes up to me. We've been waiting longer than they have. Oh, you know, miss, I'm so sorry about that. What was your name on the reservation and how many people did you have? Oh, we had 5. Okay, wait. So you're mad at me because I sat at a table of 2 before you, even though you have 5 people at your party and that's all we have open. Well, we were waiting longer. I get that, but that's the concept. You know what I mean? It's like, it's almost like a common sense kind of aspect, but it's not there. It's not processing for that individual. Not to speak badly about other people, but it's just, that's the kind of stuff that we go through. That's the kind of stuff that people deal with on all ends of the spectrum of service industry. But that's why I'm super glad like you asked me to be here and talk about this because I could, again, I'm sure like the hundreds of thousands of other people in the industry could go on for hours. I'm sure they have all kinds of stories because it's amazing that you would think this common sense is so common, but it's not, man. And it's just, they're good stories. It's a great time to be like, hey, go out after your shift, go get a drink at the bar, you know, talk about your shift, decompress, and then go in the next day. So in a way, it's kind of a win for us too to be able to talk about that kind of stuff afterwards.
Oh, for sure.
But
dude, I mean, like, if you look at it, we're already like 30 minutes into this, and we're like just scratching the surface of the shit that we could talk about.
I was just about to say, I'm sure we just tangented off into a different story that we're not even close to. But yeah, if you want to go back to that path, dude, let's go for it. I could go for hours.
Dude, I know. So you started off as a host for me, and I think you were working 2 jobs at the time. You know, I'll be the first to tell you, your personality, your ability to get along with people, that's what got you moved up to server. You seem to have a very innate ability to adapt. You know, you kind of touched up on it when it was like, you know, going into, you know, a work environment saying like, what do I need to do? Like, you know, just kind of analyzing everything and then just kind of molding yourself to fit the mold that's going to be able to put you on the right path. But, you know, going back to your origin story, you even did the same thing in high school. So this isn't something you just learned. This is like an innate, I was born with this ability to, you know, analyze, you know, identify, analyze, adapt. So what did you do differently from starting off as a host to get into that server position and then being in a server position, wanting to get to that bartender position? What do you think you did differently?
So like basically what you're asking is like, what did I do differently in comparison to others, or just like, or what did I do differently that I knew I had to do?
As a host, what did you do to become a server? As a server, what steps or what approach did you take to become a bartender?
Gotcha. So when I first got hired on, you guys were, you guys were telling me that, hey, we're only looking for this position. But in my head, when you told me that, was obviously I wanted to be a server because that's where my friend was. And she was telling me, hey, this is a great place to work. If you just have a great personality, which I thought I did at the time, like it'll work well for you. And so, hey, cool. I've never served before. Never been in the restaurant. Let's try it. So obviously when I was brought on, you guys told me, hey, we'll only have this position open. And that was, I believe it was hosting or busser or whatever it may be. And so I was like, hey, you know what? Cool. I get it. And they basically said, hey, start from the bottom. You work your way up. So I was like, hey, let's do it. You know what I mean? Like, give it a try. And to be honest with you, like in the back of my head, I was like, hey, this is new for me. If I didn't like it, I could easily just be, hey, sorry, it's not working out. 2 weeks. I'll see you guys later. But it ended up being like the start to something that I never knew would have came my way, just working my way up. But to answer your question, when I started off as a host, I saw how much money not only I was being tipped out, but how much money the servers were making, how much money the bartenders were making. And not to be straight, like just strictly financial, but that's primarily why you want a job. It's because you want to make money, you want to be successful, etc.
Especially at that age. We're talking like age 19, 20 at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's like when I got my first truck and all this kind of stuff, it's like, hey, I can't afford to keep, progressing if I don't have a job and I keep working hard. But all the staff members and all the employees and all the management, hey, if you want to start making the money that we are, like, look at this. And like, I'll never forget, a specific server had basically told me, he was like, hey, let me show you something. Like, hey, when you work hard, he was a great worker, 100%. And he's the one that trained me. He was like, hey man, look, check this out. And just for me being new to the restaurant, I saw how much money he had made in that one little small time frame of like 4 or 5 hours in a night shift on Friday. And I was like, you're taking
was this Jonathan?
Oh no, this was Jay at first. I'll never forget Jay. This was Jay and then Errol. Errol was the one that trained me as well.
Yeah, both of those guys, dude, they're fucking studs. Like they
that's
got
what I'm saying.
They got it,
dude. And I remember,
if you're listening to this, guys, you're going to be on the show one of these days too.
Oh, I'm going to show them, and I'm glad that we brought them up. But dude, Jay, I wish I would have trained with Jay. I wish I would have trained with Errol, and then Zach. Zach was a good one, dude. He was a bartender and a server. I loved him. He vibed super well. He's super cool with me. But anyways, when they started to show me how much money they were literally shoving in their pocket after every night, obviously it's stressful work. You know what I mean? It's not easy, but like being able to clock out and have that much money in your pocket every night, I was like, dude, this is where I want to be. And again, it's not that the position was sucked, but it was just like, I didn't want to be bussing. I didn't want to be hosting for 2, 3, 4, 5 years. So I was like, hey, how do I get to this position? And I asked Jay and I asked all my servers, like, hey, how do I become a server? The two things they said was just like, dude, bust your ass. And the secondly, just keep bugging management about it. Just keep bothering them. And I'm like, all right, cool, sweet. I'm like, I'll bug the hell out of them. I was like, I'm good at that. So literally, dude, like,
yeah, you were good at that.
And like, it just got to a point where I was like, dude, you know what? Just pedal to the metal, man. Just like, hey, just start busting tables, even though it sucked. Like, I hated it. I hated grabbing people's dishes, because God knows what they put on their plate and what they, hopefully what they didn't bring up back after they just ate it, back on the plate. But it's like, nobody wants to do that, but it has to get done. If you want to be a server, if you want to be a bartender, you have to go through it. So that was like my goal, which is and I started to, by putting the cherry on top, going above and beyond, I would see servers slammed in their sections. They were just in the weeds. And I would literally run over there as they were I was like, Jay, for example, was holding like 3 stacks of plates in his hand. And he just tell me, oh, I haven't talked to this table. And I was like, here, I got you. And without even asking, I just grabbed it out of his hands and I just ran it to the back. And, he didn't have time to say thank you or anything like that. Not that it was expected, but like, he just didn't have time to say anything. He was that busy, and he was a great server, man. So for him not to be able to say anything and be that busy, that's when it's like a bad night. But dude, I busted ass, man. Every table I saw, and I started to push myself. How many plates can I fit? How many glasses can I fit in my arm? How many can I carry in one hand? Now I've mastered that, dude. I can fit like 4 of these. I can fit 3 more right here, 4 more. But it's just like, I had that, obviously when I was younger, you're more energetic. I had that drive. I had that mindset of, this is where I want to be. This is the person I need to be to get that. And I was like, dude, that's why I was like pushing so hard for, hey, I want to be a server, this and that. And I'll never forget when you finally promoted me, I think it was I became Expo, because in order for me to serve, I needed to see what the food was coming out. So moved up to Expo, did my time there. And then you put me at To Go, and I did To Go.
Well, that was fun, though, right? That was like half Expoing. That was kind of like, I looked at it as on-the-job training. This is how you're going to master
exactly
the menu part of the job while you're working a position.
Yeah. And then basically just to kind of save time, I would go up through the ranks. I obviously made it to go. And then to go, I felt like I had gotten stuck a little bit. I felt like, hey, I felt comfortable. I was making decent money, but I still wanted to serve. And that's when I was like, that's where I got annoying. And I was like, dude, put me a server, put me a server, put me a server. And then finally, like, hey, you guys, I think Tiffany at the time, she gave me one table. She said, I was at the go spell. She gave me one table. And I will never forget it, dude. It was, I took care of that table so well, but of course I made a mistake because I didn't know what I was doing. But I made a mistake, but I remember the lady saying, you did an excellent job. You know, I could tell. She's like, are you new? And I was like, yes, how did you know? And she's like, I could just tell. And I was like, not really sure if that's a good thing. I'm like, I'll take it as a compliment, but I was like, I don't think that's a good thing. So I was like, you know what?
Like that new guy exuberance.
Anyway, so she gave a great, even if I did mess up, whatever. I gave the basically the response back to management. She even spoke to the manager, said, hey, he'd be great at it, et cetera. And it's like that lady just made me feel so good. And I think that's what finally pushed you guys to allow me to serve. And then I started serving, and that was it. But now, but that was like the concept of it. But dude,
I remember you saving that note, and you saved that note until I got back to work. Just show me. I wouldn't be surprised if you still have that note, because I think you pulled it out like 3 or 4 times after that.
It may or may not be framed in my room right now. But no, man. Again, like just to kind of save time. And then you finally brought me to the position where you told me you had to transfer, and I was genuinely like upset about it, because like at this point, you know, long story short, we had developed this relationship where we could sit in the back and just kind of have a conversation after work. We could meet at the bar afterwards and just kind of have a conversation, get a couple drinks, etc. And then at the one point you told me you were transferring, you were like, hey, this is my final hurrah. I'm doing this. And then all of a sudden, I'll never forget in the office, you said, you still want to be a bartender, right? And I was like, I remember I stopped and my heart sank. And I was like, don't play this game with me, Tyson. I was like, don't do it. I was like, don't play this game. I was like, because this is going to suck. And then you were like, and then all of a sudden on the schedule, it says, hey, you're training to be a bartender. And I remember just like, dude, and it may not seem like it now that I've been bartending for so long. And you know, as a bar manager now, it's just, it doesn't seem like that big of a deal. But man, like when I had that eagerness, just like knowing that I was going to be behind that bar finally of like 3+ years of just busting ass, doing dishes, like running food. It was just like, dude, it was an incredible feeling.
Dude, that was right at the time I stepped down from a GM. I had like a 1-month transition, but that moving you up to bartender was the last decision I made as a GM. That's the very last
one.
For
the viewers and the listeners, I feel like that's just going to show you how annoying I was about being in this industry.
Not that. I'll be honest. Like from a management perspective too, like there's 2 reasons you promote someone. You promote them because like out of necessity, or you promote people because they gave you no other option. They fucking earned it. They gave you no reason to say no, okay? So you were one of the very few people I've ever had a chance to take my time with and develop slowly the right way.
Sure.
Okay? There's – sometimes you get lucky. Like, you know, you talked about Zach earlier.
Yeah.
Zach was like good on him, because he moved up really quickly from host to bartender, but he stuck and he did a great job.
Sure.
9 times, I say 99 times out of 100, when you move people up that quickly, or you move people up out of necessity before they learn the fundamentals or the things that you want them to learn before they become bartender, they don't work out.
Sure.
You know, they're going to have some deficiencies. Sometimes they'll do the job. They can probably figure it out as they go along. But you were the one that I was like, I was probably a dick about it too, but I remember I was like,
well-deservingly
from host. Before you move from host to expo, I want you to learn this. And as an expo, I want you to learn this. Before you move to car side, you know,
sure.
Expo was about learning the menu, learning the food, right?
Oh, sure.
And moving to car side, now you're learning the computer, okay? When you move to server, now you're learning how to multitask and how to apply everything you've already learned, right? Then that's when you master that. You learn how to multitask on a grand scale on the busiest nights and still be a team player. Yeah, you could be a bartender. But I remember that was the last decision that I made, was like,
that was
I can't remember who I was
a few days before you left.
I'm like, I posted that schedule up, but I was like, I can't remember who I was talking to, but I'm like, this needs to happen. And I think like your first day of training was like It was like a day or two after I left. So I remember it was like
Sure.
that. I mean, it was that short of a window. That was the last decision that I made. So
Yeah.
that, and
Well, I'm
honestly,
glad
it
you
kind of
did
like, it kind of upsets me because I was like, I mean, going in my other location too.
Sure.
I remember thinking like I even asked a few people, I'm like, God, I wonder how he's doing. Like, I knew you were going to be good because there was nothing else for you to fucking learn at that position.
know,
Like,
right?
when I promoted you to a bartender, like I was fucking confident as shit, dude. Like
Sweet.
there wasn't a lot of things I was confident about at that time, especially in a fucking dynamic industry like the restaurants and shit. That one I knew was going to be a fucking home
Sweet.
run, dude.
Right on.
Now you got to fill me in. How did that go as a bartender?
Dude, again, not to be repetitive, but I could go on for hours and just be talking about, all the experiences behind the bar, but just in general, dude, again, moving from host all the way to bartender. I remember seeing how cool it was to be behind the bar and how people flocked there and you could have a conversation with people. It just seemed more laid back at the time. And it was just like the place to be. That was the cool spot, So when I finally took a step back there as training, again, with the with my grandparents being in the military, my dad kind of pushing that on me, it was like, hey, I need to take this job seriously now that I'm handling something that could potentially put someone in a bad situation. It's like, you need to have that sense of responsibility and that sense of willingness to be able to tell people, hey, obviously if you don't feel comfortable, like, hey, let me get you some chips and salsa, or let me get you some food on us. Let me take care of that. Let's get you sobered up a little bit. I think you've had one too many. Again, there's a whole way to go about it. But just being behind the bar, man, just like it felt so different. It was almost like from a position of being a host, it was like, I'm top dog now. Like, hey, like obviously now that I'm in this position, now I got to handle it like, respectfully. I got to handle it professionally. I got to be that guy. Everyone's looking up to me, kind of thing. Like, be that role model that people want to see. But dude, just like I'll never forget it. And being able to have the knowledge that I have now of bartending and all the experience that I've had being behind the bar, it just gives me a complete 180, like a complete 180 vision of what it's like to be in the service behind the bar. Anytime I go out clubbing or anytime I go to just a regular bar to have a drink with a guy, it's like, it's completely different.
That's amazing, dude. And honestly, that right there that you just touched on, that's what I was going for. Was you start cutting corners and moving people up too quickly up the ranks, they start missing those perspectives throughout the organization or the industry and how things work, all the different moving parts. But you hit the nail on the head where, taking your time, moving up the ranks and really getting a grasp at every position as you move up, that's how you really start to become a leader in that position, where you understand not just your role, but the different ways that your role impacts the other roles and how those roles impact you as well. So that's really, dude, I couldn't be more proud of you, man. Moving up. Because I knew you were impatient, dude. I saw the look on your face every time you came and bugged me about it. It was, I don't want to say I felt bad, because to an extent maybe I did feel bad. Maybe
No, by all means,
like, but I knew my big long term, the picture and the idea that I had in mind of where I wanted you to get. Mm-hmm. And dude, it couldn't have worked out more perfectly. I mean, as far as where you are now versus where you started, and how I kind of developed you there.
I wish I had the experience that I do now. And again, I'm not a professional or anything like that, but I feel like I have a little experience behind my back now. It's like, I wish I would have had that knowledge back at that time when I was trying to become a bartender or trying to, like bugging the hell out of you guys about being one. Like in a sense, I do kind of stick with bugging you guys because like, it just kind of shows, if someone kept doing that to me, it shows that like, hey, they're eager, they're hungry, they're willing
Absolutely.
to be this individual or this position. So in a way, I do back myself up.
Yeah, I never looked at it as you were bugging me. That was the when every time you approached me like that, that was like your way of saying like, I know this is hard, I know I'm impatient, but I'm still interested. That's what I heard every time you came to me.
It was just
at the same
in a
time,
matter.
You tell people, I mean, if you kind of expose your end game, that it takes a lot of the fuel and the motivation out of it, because now they're not just now they're not striving to learn. Now they're just going through the motions, knowing like, oh, it's just a time game. I got to wait another year and a half and I'll be there. You know what I mean? Like,
Sure.
it doesn't do anybody good to just go through the motions. They need to show up to work with a purpose, practicing with, I mean, this is all practice and exposure. You know what I mean? It's experience.
Yeah.
And you need that intent behind it. Otherwise, you're absorbing nothing. You learn nothing. Mm-hmm. But you as a server, knowing that you wanted to be a bartender, and me, and you know, I kind of like laid those paper stones for you, saying like, this is where I want you to get. And I think every time you approached me, we always had that conversation too, where it's like, this is what I need from you. This is what I need from you. And those were kind of laying down the stepping stones to what I wanted you to absorb before you moved up to that next position.
And as a leader and as a manager for any kind of company, I feel like that's, now that I understand that, now it's like, now I look back on like, hey, this is why it took so long. Of course, you know, obviously availability in the position, you know, you can't afford, as a manager, you can't afford to have 20 bartenders and have X amount of shifts. It's just not going to happen. So obviously when I found out the position was open, you know, et cetera, that's when I was like, hey, this is my time to shine. You know, I've proved myself, et cetera. But I mean, I will never look back on it. I'll never look back and be like, oh, I regret becoming a bartender, or I regret working that hard to get to this point. Because like now the company that I'm at now, it's just like, if I hadn't had started with bartending at Applebee's, I more than likely would have not been offered the job at Zocalo as a bartender. I probably would have started off as a host again, or as a busser. And it's like, again, you got to do what you got to do, but that's not the position that I wanted to be at. So being able to have that experience under my belt going into that bartending position, it just helped out tremendously.
So I didn't get to see that part because you took that job as a host, looking at the other servers and the other bartenders going, that's where I want to be. When you got to that bartender position, what was your reaction to that moment when you finally stepped behind the bar? Was that hey, I finally made it? Or is this okay, what's next? I want more.
It was both. I want to say for the first, like, and it just, for average, for the first 6 months when I was bartending, it was, hey, I made it. I remember like, cause you could see the host stand at the front door from the bar. I remember seeing the host and being like, dude, that used to be me. 3-4 years ago, that was me. But here I am now, you know, 4 years later. And it may not seem like that much, but like 4 years just like of hosting, busing, expoing, to go specialist, carside. That's a long time going through all the motions of showing up every day, you know, all that kind of stuff. So to start off, it was a concept of, I made it. I'm behind the bar. I'm in control. This is my area. Like, I'm going to do great. But then after the 6 months, after the year went by, then I started to have that feeling of, okay, what's next? Do I want to be a manager? Do I want to be a key? Because I think we had like a position, it was called the key. It's like a supervisor kind of thing, but it was like in between management. So it's like, do I want to be that, or do I still want to be behind the bar? Because I had fun behind the bar. Being behind the bar was fun. People were asking for stuff. You knew how to make them. You could please the people around you and have a good time and converse with them and show them like, hey, I care that you guys are in here. Thanks for coming in. And again, I'm sure that ties into bringing up regulars, you know what I mean? So, and I'm sure that's part of this conversation as well. But to answer your question, man, it was both. To beginning, it was like, I was like, fuck, man, I made it. Like, this is great. Now I want to be better. I want to be the guy that does all the flare tricks. I'm not saying I can do that now, but I want to be the flare guy. I want to do this. I want to be able to make 3 drinks at once. I want to be able to, like, you know, please everybody at the bar. Like, I want to know every single drink on the planet. Like, that's what I wanted. You know what I mean?
Dude, that's amazing. So how long were you bartending before you finally decided I wanted to make that next step? I want to move up into management.
To be honest with you, I never had that thought of being a manager. When I was bartending, I felt like I had developed the sense of comfortability, and I was comfortable with where I was at. I was making decent money. I really enjoyed what I did. The only downside about working in corporate is that they don't give you the availability to play with your drinks, like to craft something of yourself. Everything had to be poured specifically, and I get it, you know, that's their money and et cetera. But like, I felt like,
that depends on who your managers are too.
Yeah.
Because I remember giving Zach and Melissa even, like, I gave them some leeway, and I think Melissa even like created her own drinks, and we just found a way to ring it in. You know what I mean? Sure.
But see, that's great though.
You know what I mean? That are willing to play outside of the box.
Yeah, and that's what really helped us, and that's what still helped me at Zocalo when I was bartending and et cetera. But basically, you know what it was like to the core? It was being heard, being able to like, hey, obviously we understood that we were confined behind the bar to certain guidelines and restrictions of pouring, free pouring, etc. But it's like, once you start giving us that seed, that little mental thought of, hey, what would it be like to go with this? Try this with that, etc. And it's like, you get to make your own drinks, and it's like, hey, you know what? People love this one. Let's do something with it, you know? But yeah, so, I mean, I never had that mentality of being a manager until when I was at Zocalo, and they offered me they called it a captain's position. Basically, it was like a table enhancement position, but you were, in a sense, it's like a key, just kind of like being in between management and then above bartender. You know what I mean?
That's a great position because it allows you to test the waters to see, are you going to enjoy it? Because to your point,
Sure.
It's not all about the money. You need to enjoy what you're doing, like
Exactly.
fully enjoy what you're doing if you want to be successful. Because you can do it. You can show up. I could show up, you know, as a CPA or whatever, but I'd fucking hate life because I don't want to be staring at numbers and papers all day, not talking to anyone. You know what I mean? You have to really enjoy what you're doing. And being in management, that it's a really good balance of, you know, being able to not just stick in one area. You know, bartending relies on the ability to be social with people. And being social, you can really drive traffic. And dude, even bartending alone, dude, you can make so much money. Like, I have a hard time struggling why people have a hard time with the thought of being a bartender long-term or even making a career out of it, because
Sure.
I mean, the ability is there. You know what I mean? I wish if there was any change in the industry, I would love to see would be give bartenders those same benefits, or maybe even to a lesser degree, that the managers get. Because finding good bartenders is so difficult. Like, you don't want to let them go when they're 28 years old and want to make a career. Like, why not make bartending a career? You know what I mean? If you're looking at straight hour, I mean, you're just talking about hourly wage with tips. Some of the best bartenders I've seen, we're talking like $50 an hour, dude.
Yeah.
On tips alone.
Bartending is like, and again, this just ties back to where becoming that bartender was that I didn't even know these jobs were available. So obviously when I had moved on to Zocalo, I had more experience of like, hey, you know, speed equals service kind of thing, and more knowledge coming behind tequila specifically, because it's primarily a tequila bar. But for example, I found out through some friends through bartending, hey, my friend is hosting a Halloween party. She needs a bartender. Would you be willing to do it?
Side gigs, dude, right? Yeah.
Dude, absolutely. And I'll tell you this one story. I met a regular, developing regulars. I'm sure that's what it'll tie into. But this regular developed. He used to be in law enforcement. That's the career that I was aiming for at the time. I'm still kind of thinking about it, but as of right now, I'm doing really well with the position that I'm at. I feel comfortable. I feel good. But anyways, besides the point, he had asked me, after constantly coming back, and I would take care of him, like, hey, you know, good to see you kind of thing, develop his name. Like, hey man, like, he comes up to me and says, hey, my daughter's wedding is at this time. I really enjoy being here. You're a great bartender. Do you want to host this or do you want to bartend for me? I was like, hey, you know, why not? I was like, let's do it. We ended up sitting down. We created a list of things that he asked me for my recommendations of, like, hey, do a guys and girls drink. Guys did old fashions. Girls did like cosmopolitans, or girls did like a sangria or something like that. And I hate to put a gender on drinks because there's no such thing. Anybody can order whatever you want. I don't care if it's
a trend. It's a trend.
Absolutely. It's a society thing too, because, and I mean this 100%, and I don't agree with it, but I mean it. If you were to go out as a guy right now and you had 2 fruity drinks in front of you, strawberry daiquiris, the swirly straw, and an umbrella and a strawberry, people are going to, and this is not a bad thing at all. People are going to think you're gay. People are going to think like, oh, you know, you like fruity drinks, you must not be a man, kind of thing. I 100% disagree with that. I have a sweet tooth.
Dude, I fucking love those kind of drinks.
Dude, I have a really bad sweet tooth. So when I see guys ordering that, like strawberry daiquiris, all this, I'm like, over with a frown on my face. I'm like, dude,
I'll be honest. Like when I go out to when I go golfing, especially, like those are the kind of drinks I order or I bring with me to drink on the golf course, because I don't want a dry ass fucking beer. It's gonna dehydrate me.
It's refreshing. Dude, these drinks are refreshing.
Yeah. Dude, give me fucking swirly straws and umbrellas all day, man.
Dude, You know what? Now that I've established like the confidence to drink that kind of stuff, it's like now I want to drink them. Now it's like, you know what? Like middle finger to whoever is judging me. Like, dude, this shit tastes good. Man. I don't care, dude. You know what? Like, and I've had guests come up to me.
If they don't think it tastes good, they're fucking lying. They're fucking lying. Because I guarantee you, if you made one at home after dinner, they'll drink the fuck out of that drink, dude.
And you know what's even funny, dude? It's like when you see, I've had guys come up and it's just like these massive dudes, like they live in the gym, full on beer down to their chest, kind of just like super manly guys. And they sit down and, can I get a strawberry daiquiri? And I'm like,
fuck yeah. That's my favorite kind of guy, right? And
I'm like, can I get an appletini? And I'm like, absolutely, you can have like, but on a serious note, it's like that's the stereotype that I have in my head, unfortunately, is because that's what society is basing these drinks off. And I hate it. And I tell people all the time, guys will come up and say, can I get a mojito? Just like, but can you put it in a pint glass for me or something? Like some kind of alternative.
I remember those kind of requests.
Yeah. You'd get some kind of drink. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Like I had this guest, he wanted a glass of wine every single time. He just wants a red wine, man. But he would always ask me, can you put it in a pint glass for me? And I finally got the courage to tell him, like, hey, brother, like, hey, like, can I ask you? And I just said, hey, can I ask you why you're putting a pint glass? Like, and he just said up straight. He's like, to be honest with you, man, like, I just don't want to be judged. And I told him straight up, I was like, dude, you know what? Like, you don't need, like, don't feel that way, dude. And even though I felt bad, I lied to him. Just, it was in the heat of the moment. I lied to him and I said, dude, I drink wine all the time. I don't. Like, I drink wine. I drink these. Like, I didn't, but he literally said, you know what? My next round, put in a red wine glass. And like that right there, dude, that clicked for me. Like, holy shit. Like, just opening up to this guy, leveling with him, adapting to what he was telling me was just like, he changed his mind. And literally from then on, he was like, he didn't care anymore. He just put in a red wine glass.
Super interesting.
And I will never forget that, man. He was a regular and I felt bad because like, I never knew. And then I finally just stood up and dude, he was in his late 40s.
Really? Okay.
Late 40s, early 50s, something like that. Because I felt like he was raised like if he drank these specific drinks, he was going to be judged. He was going to be made fun of, or maybe he was made fun of at previous bars. You know what I mean? Like those hardcore bars where if a guy's not drinking whiskey and, shots tequila and all this kind of stuff, then it's like, you don't belong in that bar kind of thing. But yeah, man, it was just like, just being behind the bar, being able to express yourself to people and vice versa. Sometimes people take advantage of you and like you end up becoming their like, what is it? They're a psychiatrist or a psychologist or whatever. And it's like, sometimes you got to take that back. I'm not there for you to, unless you're going to pay me extra to listen to your problems, then,
super cheap psychologist.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not going to give you the great answer. I'll give you what you need. Like, here's another shot. But like, but just being behind the bar and being able to talk to people, adapt with people, establishing relationships, building those side jobs, man. It's like, and I know we kind of tangented off, but to tie back into that side job, he ended up hiring me. I told him what we should do, the old fashioned, the sangria for ladies kind of thing. And then they had a decent selection of beer and other drinks. So I was like, hey, this is what you need. This is what you should buy from Costco. It's cheap, etc. Let's do it. We made it happen. It was at his house. He hired me. Start off, hey, I'm going to have you from 4 to 9, 4 to 10, whatever. And he was like, by all means, feel free to drink with us, etc. And, I had one drink just kind of sitting the whole entire night. I feel like it's very unprofessional for a bartender to be like, hey, drinking all night, enjoying, kind of like neglecting the people. Like, you're being hired to take care of these people. This is their night, not yours. If you get permission without asking, hey, dude, have a drink on the side, sip it if you will. Hey, great. If you have that mental strength, great, go for it. Enjoy your night. The point is, at 10 o'clock, 10:30, when I'm rolling around and I'm done serving drinks, everybody went home. He ended up giving me, he was in law enforcement. He was a captain in law enforcement for 30 years, ended up being a captain. The point is, he ended up paying me like $600. Can't remember, 600 or 700. Dude, $600 in one night from 4 o'clock to 10 o'clock. $600. Super casual setting. I had a drink to chill with, and nothing was being done illegally. Nothing was being done like under the table. It was just like, dude, he hired me for a job. This is what I did. Everyone had a great time. He was super proud. His daughter was obviously the one getting married, so she loved it. Everyone had a great time. The point is, like, he took care of me. I'm not saying every side job's going to pay you that, but he took care of me because like I had the expertise, I had the knowledge. And not only that, but he was like, dude, everybody loved you. Because nobody wants what can I get for you? A beer? Crack. You go next. Like, nobody wants that, man. Nobody, hey, you want a beer? Dude, I got you. You know, do a little flair, do something like, hey, dude, I got you next round kind of thing. People are going out because they're coming from a stressful job. They're coming from, you know, a bad night. Maybe he had a really shitty day. Maybe she just got broken up with, etc. It's like, dude, you were there. And I understand not every night's going to be like that, but you are there to make them have a great time. And it's like, people are not going to come back if you're that grumpy bartender. Nobody wants that. But yeah, man, those side jobs, dude, like, it opened up a whole new world. I've made like 500. I've made almost 1,000 on this one job for like a whole day. It's just like, so when you say, why don't people make a career out of this? I've thought about that. I'm like, dude, you know, obviously when I'm 50 years old, I'm going to get tired of it eventually. But it's like, dude, they make good money. If you're a decent bar, nightclub, whatever, if you're willing to put in the time and you can handle the stress, you make damn good money, dude.
There's really only, I feel like really the only missing component from keeping people there, and I mean like long term, like making careers out of the job,
sure,
is the missing benefits, right? That's really
absolutely.
That's really the only like differentiating factor that, you know, when people say like, oh, I don't want to do this anymore, like I want a real job. Like, what the fuck's the difference between this and a real job?
Yeah,
it's the benefits. Like, you don't have retirement, you don't have insurance, like, you know, they're not paying into your insurance. Like,
sure.
But other than that, what the fuck is the difference?
Yeah, it's that
I would
word,
love
man.
to see more, and we're talking like a small. It's not like every restaurant, every bar's got like 20 bartenders. I mean, we're talking like a smaller group, the 5 to 10 elite that more likely than not have been there for years. They've earned their stripes, and they've earned that right to have those benefits, right? I mean, if I were to own a chain or own a restaurant or a group of restaurants, or that would probably be the first thing that I would change, would be, because that retention, like too many times over the years, I've seen good bartenders walk out the door because they found something better, and all their regulars go with them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a big chunk of money right there, dude. I mean, we're not talking like every once in a while kind of customers. We're talking about the 1, 2, 3 times a week customers that are just walking out the door.
Yep. I remember when Monique, when she left for Oregon or Washington, or I'm pretty sure it's Oregon. I just remember the bar seating was not the same during those hours. She had the standard 9 to 5, and she was great at what she did. Obviously, she did her job well. People came to her, but the point was, like, lunch rush was not the same because of this one individual. You know what I mean? Like, this is a local area, people coming in after lunch breaks, etc.
That's huge. I mean, you can't. Yeah, it's so hard to find those kind of bartenders that are that good at, like, Monday through Friday 9 to 5 is not the ideal.
It's not
if you want to make money, but she worked it.
Oh,
she
absolutely.
Made it happen, and she did it beautifully. Like, there's no other bartender that I can, over 13 years of working in the industry, there's no other bartender that executed Monday through Friday 9 to 5 more perfectly than she did.
Sure.
Absolutely amazing.
And that's the thing about bartending, man, is I'm sure a lot of people see that in music, in movies, etc. It's like this, the time to be out is a Friday, Saturday, Sunday at, from like 5 to 9, 5 to 10, whatever, or even those late night scenes where you're there from 9:30 to 2 in the morning. You know what I mean? But yeah, just making that much money that she did. She would tell me, making that much money from a 9 to 5. I'm like, I felt like the only thing stopping her was, again, like you said, it was the social standing of career. Like, I hate that word, career. I really do. You can make a career out of anything. You know what I mean? But it's like, if you told me I'm going to be a bartender, making this much money, making this much every night, but you said, hey, you're getting health and benefits and dental, whatever, I'd be like, why would I leave this job? You know what I mean? Like, why would I leave?
Absolutely. Okay. Vacation days is probably the only other thing that I would throw in there. But, dude, I mean, can you imagine, like, her example right there? She's got the perfect gig. She's Monday through Friday. She's 9 to 5. She worked at the lunch rushes. She was making more than any other bartender there over the 5 years I was working.
I'm sure.
There. What else do you want? I mean, like, you get the medical. I mean, if you had medical, you had retirement, and you had, I mean, granted, benefits aren't cheap, dude.
I'm sure. Absolutely.
It's a lot
I
of
won't
money.
even try to dip into that. Yeah.
But look at the end result. Like, where's that restaurant at now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was just about to say, look at it now.
It's amazing. Like, those kind of people make such a huge difference. And like, maybe it doesn't even need to be like a one size fits all. Maybe it doesn't need to be every bartender. Maybe it's you bartend here for 2 years and you'll qualify for benefits. You know what I mean? Because that would have been a difference maker. Offering, maybe you start out 2 weeks, a vacation a year. You get the same medical benefits as the assistant managers, and you get, retirement 25 cents on the dollar or something. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Super basic, but you're offering benefits and you turn a job into a career. That's a difference maker, dude.
And it sucks, man, because, like, again, I understand the whole corporate aspect and the private business ownership of providing health benefits to your staff. It's a lot of money, dude, and I won't even like try to dip my toe in that. But with that being said, and to be honest with you, if I was given the opportunity to bartend at Zocalo, being a private company, and they said, hey, we're going to give you X amount of vacation days, we're going to give you health and benefits, what do you say about making it full time? I really don't have anything that would tell me to stop, like to stop saying yes. Like, if I could do that, again, obviously every job has those nights where nobody wants to do it. It gets tiring, you're out late, etc. The point is, I wouldn't have any reason to say no because I was making money every night, being able to put some cash in my pocket, but well knowing that like I was pulling, almost $1,000 every week. Because again, it depends on the volume, dude. It depends on the volume of the restaurant, how well, how good your service is, how good your food is, how good your drinks are. But being able to make that, I remember seeing a paycheck and it was about $1,000. It was about $1,000. And I'm like, if I'm making this almost every week, why would I stop? You know what I mean? And that's after taxes. That was after taxes. And I'm like, why would I stop? Like, why would I stop making this much money? And I'm having a great time for the most part. And I get to see some of my friends. I got friendly staff. It's like, why would I stop? Why can't I make this a lifetime goal of mine?
Dude, and you know what? Honestly, that's the difference maker, because I'll tell you just from my experience, it's so much harder to find a great bartender than it is to find a great manager.
Sure.
Going back to what we talked about earlier, I could teach anybody to host. I could teach anybody to serve. I could teach anybody to pour drinks. I could teach anybody to manage too. I can't teach the personality it takes to build that type of clientele to where every single shift you're showing up with a full bar. It's not possible. It's either you have it or you don't. It's DNA. And that needs to be rewarded. That needs to be celebrated a lot more than, I bartended for 4 years. I need to move up because I need the benefits. Like, fucking give these guys benefits, because these guys behind the bar, that's the heart of the restaurant right there. That's the center of the restaurant. Nothing survives without it. A
lot of your sales come from the bar as well. I'm not saying it's primarily, but like for our restaurant, it's like 60% food, like, or 60-40 or like 70-30. The point is, a big chunk of your bar. So it's like, if you don't have, or if you're sales, it's like, if you don't have someone in the bar making that everyday goal, making those adjustments, making those people happy, building regulars, like if you don't have that, then you're not doing something right, but also you're not helping your company grow. You're not helping sales. You're not helping them.
Think about the collateral, or the peripheral sales too. Like, if I go into a restaurant and I can't buy a beer, or if that bartender's taken forever and I don't want to come back, like, what does that take away from the food sales?
Sure.
I remember one regular we had at our location that we worked at together. Like, they would show up and they would drop $200 every single day.
Yeah.
And it
I've
was
seen
not
days
all
like
food.
that. I'm like, dude.
I'm talking like 50-50. So we're talking like, okay, maybe we're dropping $100 in, alcohol sales, but we're also dropping $100 in food sales if we lose the
sure.
sale. You know what I mean? So how many of those, I think at Applebee's it was probably about like 25-75 was, about the average.
Sure.
But if you lose the alcohol sales, if your bartender sucks and can't drive the alcohol sales, what's your food sales look like? Because if I'm a guest and I'm going in there and I can't get my 3 beers with my burger, then I'll go somewhere else for my burger.
Yeah, exactly. That small percentage that you're losing, now you're losing 100% of that sale.
It's collateral damage. Yeah. So learning how, it's just the bar is fuel for everything, dude. It's fuel for everything. Not everything. 80%.
Most
I
of
would
it,
say
but like,
you're going to lose. You'll probably lose 20% of your food sales if you don't have that 20% of your bar sales.
sure.
30% of your food sales if you don't have the 30% of your bar sales.
Yep. It's
It's
just,
just crazy how it works. I mean, it's all dynamic. It all ties in together, but
yeah.
just I don't.
Yeah.
From the outside looking in retrospect, like that's probably the biggest thing I would change. But I never owned a restaurant. Like I said, I know benefits. You're talking if you want a full benefits package, that's 50% of the cost of labor in itself. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
It's a lot of money. Maybe even more than
Sure.
that. Maybe even 65% of labor costs. So
Sure.
now you're talking a lot more overhead, and restaurants don't make a lot to begin with. But God, I mean, if you lose the top sales revenue, you're not going to have anything to bring down to the bottom line.
I was gonna say, yeah. Yeah. It's just,
It's nuts, man.
yeah.
So a few more questions here for you. As a bartender, you were about 22 when I left, and we stopped working together.
Sure.
That was about the time you started going out and you were exploring. You got to see a lot more of what a good bartender looks like. As a guest, what do you think separates a good bartender from an average one?
I think that for me personally, if I were to walk into a bar, if I saw, bartender A and bartender B, and I were to go up, the first thing I would notice is, hey, does this person know you're here? Is this person acknowledging you're here? It could be as simple like, hey, what's going on, guys? Or it could be like, there's 2 open spots over here, grab a seat, or something like that. It's just, I think the one thing that stands out is personality. Being able to, even if you're having a really shitty night, even if you're, obviously, God forbid, one of your family members pass away, your friend gets hurt, your dog just died, whatever it may be, obviously do what you got to do. Take that time for yourself. But even if it's still lingering the next day and you're showing up and you are strong enough to say, hey, what's going on, John? Or, hey, Tyson, what's going on, dude? Hey, by all means, dude, I got a seat right here for you. Come grab it. It's all yours, kind of thing. That initial start of like, you've said their name, you know who they are, or like, I guess from the perspective that you're asking me, he knows my name. He knows that I have a spot waiting for me, or he knows my drink. Just like being able to establish that rapport with your guest, with your bar guest is the most important. Anybody can come in, sit down, order a drink, give it to them, drink it, pay your bill, and walk out. It's literally giving that experience to your bar guest is the most important in my aspect. So if I had bartender A give me the great experience, even if my drink didn't come till 20 minutes after I asked for it, like I would still level with him. Even if I didn't have experience, like, hey, dude, like, he's like, hey, man, I'm super slammed. I didn't forget about you. I promise. Like, let me get this drink knocked out, and I'll be right over there to grab your beer. I'd be like, dude, hey, you know what, dude? Take your time. Like, I'm all good. I'm on my phone. I'm taken care of. If bartender B is just sitting over here, on his phone, and I'm over there, like, just kind of sitting here, like, hey, what's going on, dude? He's over there just kind of like lazily grabbing my beer, doesn't fill it up properly, doesn't do this, doesn't care about his job. Like, that's what separates, in my opinion, being like that greater bartender is taking pride in your job, having that product knowledge, and taking care of the people that are sitting in front of you.
So kind of building on that premise right there, let's assume that bartender A and bartender B, let's assume they were working at the same location, same bar, same restaurant, same whatever. And you walked in as a guest and you saw bartender B, that guy that's on the phone. Why would you go back and hope to find a bartender A?
I would go back in, and today's age and day and age, I would say my first thought would be like, hey, I'm gonna text this guy. If I have his number, if I contact with it, I'm gonna call this company. Hey, so and so bar is bartender A working today? No, he's off today. I got bartender B. Shit. Well, okay, maybe next time. Like
you're going somewhere else. You're going somewhere else.
I'm going.
You're going somewhere else.
And I'm like, shit, because you know what? Because go ahead.
No, that's exactly where I was going with this conversation. Was like I really wanted to, from a consumer perspective, and that's what I wanted to find out that question. That first impression is so critical, not just for the bartender themselves, but for the company, for the organization, for that location, whatever it is. Like, you get one shot, dude.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And it's not like you walk in, you get one drink. Like, you might have 1 to 2 hours to to make it happen. But if
Sure.
you fuck up that entire first experience, that's all you get. That's all you get, dude. I mean, really.
I hate to say it, but I've done it before. I've been that guy, unfortunately. Like I was by myself.
I've done it too, dude. I've done it too.
I was by myself in this bar. I was absolutely drowning, dude. And nobody in the restaurant could help me because nobody had the knowledge of bartending. You know, again, that's another story, but I was just drowning, dude. And just these people came in and they were just super nice to me and stuff. But like, I wanted to give them that A+, that grade A service, but I just couldn't do it because I was absolutely busy. I had a bar full of like 20 plus people. I had the server well, you know, full of tickets. Servers were yelling at me, I need this and that. And it's just like, cause I'm taking not only drinks, but I'm taking food orders as well. So if I'm sure you can imagine, and the other viewers and listeners, like sometimes it happens. You'll get the customer that says, hey, what goes on this? Like, what is this? You know, like, is this by, and it's like, that starts taking every second counts, dude. That minute or two that goes by of you explaining food dishes and all this kind of stuff, it takes away from everybody else's needs. Not that I'm saying you shouldn't ask questions, but that's the situation where like, fuck, dude, I wanted to give that couple that came in with a giant smile or they were celebrating something. I wanted to give them that great absolute service, but I couldn't do it. Or just like, I just, maybe they got the wrong impression of hey, folks, I'm so sorry. I'll be right with you. Like, I didn't want to take care of them or this and that. Like they told me, they're like, hey dude, like, you know, I knew you were super busy, but we just didn't have a good time, et cetera. And it's like, we probably won't be back. And I'm like, and I literally would tell them, hey, guys, I'm so sorry. You know, please, like I'd offer them a free drink. Hey, please come back and see me. I'll make it up to you. I promise.
That's a huge key right there. Like, yeah, I'm really glad you brought that up because there are times that you describe where it's just like, you just physically can't keep up.
Exactly.
Right? And a lot of times I think guests can recognize that they can't versus the I won't, is do they have the will or do they not? Do they care? Do they don't?
Sure.
But to your point right there, like I would like to think that every bar manager or every manager that's on duty would have their back and just, you can go up to the manager and just be like, look, dude, I fucked up with this guest. I really want them to come back. Can you do something for them?
Sure.
And 9 times out of 10, like I would like to think that they're going to do the right thing. But even as a bartender, like I like to look at bartending as like you own your own separate properties, right? Like you, as a bartender, you have this real estate right here. I'm giving you 20, 25 stools, and you have these 25 stools to make money. I'm giving this to you to make money.
If you're a bartender, that is your bar. I don't care if you're not the bar manager or not. That is your bar. Right. You take care of it the way I expect you to. The way you're going to.
Exactly. You own it, right?
Exactly.
So as an owner of those stools, like even if the bar manager is not going to have your back, not going to talk to the guests, not going to hook them up or do whatever it takes to bring them back, as a bartender, like you need to go out of your way to just be like, even if you're meeting them at the front door on their way out, like, hey, look, guys, I know I fucked up. I'm going to give you my, I'm sure you don't have a card, but
but you're going to give them some kind of contact, yeah.
Write down my name, like, dude, I owe you because tonight is not my night. This is not how I normally am, but please come back. Let me buy you each a drink, and I will take care of it. It's on me.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
If you had said that to me, I would have literally been like, hey, you know what? Even if it's a crappy experience, if you had came up to me even when I was about leaving, guys, I'm so sorry. Like, you're taking that extra step. You're going that extra mile to show them I'm here to give you a good time, here to show you a good time. Please let me do that next time,
There's such a huge step right there because they're going to, really the guest is going to appreciate the honesty behind it.
Sure.
As a bartender, you don't want, shitty execution by the company or someone to fuck you over to reflect you as a bartender, but you need to own that, and that's where personal brand comes in. That's your reputation as a bartender. You can't let one person walk out thinking it's on you as a bartender when it's, maybe it's not your fault. Chase after them. Just be like, look, give me another shot. This is on me.
Yep.
Even if you just come in for drinks, the tab's going to be free. You don't even have to tip. Just give me, just let's try this again. Because this isn't how it normally is.
Yeah. And I just, and again, how I tied into wanting to go into law enforcement, I've been on multiple ride-alongs and I've talked to multiple police officers and they've told me the same exact thing, the same exact situation. You could have 100 good, like perfected police officers, been trained absolutely incredibly well, no issues whatsoever. All it takes is that one bad apple, that one bad cop, or that one bad experience in the bar that is going to deter you from going back or basically deter you from viewing that agency or that bar or that restaurant of that good impression they're going to say, oh, this place was crap. You know what I mean? All it takes is that one bad experience. So it's like, if you really care about your job, if management cares about you and you want to reflect that against yourself, you have to be able to, like, obviously, and it's hard for some people. It's hard for me specifically. I don't like admitting when I'm wrong. I don't like looking bad. It's just, it sucks. But at the end of the day, it's like, if you don't, it's going to make it worse. You're going to get that bad Yelp review. It's going to make your company look stupid. You know what I mean? It's like, it's also a personality thing, man. Like, if you don't have it, it's not going to reflect on that. It's not going to reflect on you or the company in a good sense of a manner.
That's a good point you make there. Hey, Kendyl, we're running out of time here. So, God, it's been
I know.
a substantial amount of time, and we're only like halfway done with the conversation here. God, what do you think it'll take to get you back on here in a couple of weeks here so we can finish up?
Oh, dude, it's literally just call me, text me, message me on Instagram, whatever you got to do. Like, I could talk for hours, but maybe this time, if I get back on here a few months, years from now, whatever, when you're some big shot guy over here, and I'm like begging you to get me back on this. This. But,
we'll touch base again in a few weeks. I think sure. we pretty well covered the transition from starting in the industry to becoming a bartender, but I'm really interested now that you're a bar manager, kind of what that transition's been like, and how we could pick your brain on the differences and what you like about it, and some of those things too. So, dude,
please just hit me up, invite me, whatever it needs to be done. We'll set it up again, dude. I'll answer the rest of your questions even more.
Nice. The Top Shelf Nation, this has been a great conversation with Kendyl here, and there's so much to talk about. We could do this for hours, honestly. So, Kendyl, it's been great having you. Top Shelf Nation, please be sure to follow Kendyl here on Instagram. He's on TikTok. He's on Snapchat. We're at what are we? Kendyl or Kenbra318.
Mm-hmm.
I'll make sure to post that up there. Look for the tag right here. Kendyl, it's been great, man.
Awesome. Hey, dude, thanks for having me on.
One last shout out to the audience here. If you had to give some up and coming fan words of advice on what he needs to do to become a bartender, what would you tell
him? Develop that great mentality, man. Just develop the personality. And again, there's a lot of people nowadays that seem, high anxiety, very antisocial. If you've definitely gone to a bar and you're like, hey, I would love to be that person. Like, what does it take to get there? Honestly, just be yourself. And it sounds cliche and it sounds cheesy. It's like, dude, just be yourself. If you can open up to people, if you can talk to them, level with people, show them that you are there to give them that great experience. You like to talk to people, great. Obviously keep it short when you're behind the bar, but just literally just do your best, show them a good time, show them that you're there to, give them that great experience. And like, hey, obviously people are going to look up to you too. Like if you're a guy, obviously girls might come up to you. They're going to think it's pretty, like, it's hot, it's interesting. Especially you get to have a conversation with them. And then for girls, obviously, you make really good money doing it. It gives you a great perspective on restaurant, service industry, side jobs. You can make really good money doing it. But overall, man, just be good to people, be honest, be straight up, and definitely get that going.
All right, hang tight just here for a second, Kendyl. All right, hey, thanks again for joining us, Top Shelf Nation. Like I said before, go ahead and give Kendyl here a follow on Instagram. He's on TikTok. He's on Snapchat. Catch up with them. I'll leave our tags up here on the top. Top Shelf Nation, it's been great seeing you again. Don't forget to give us a follow here on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button below. Turn on your alerts. Look for us on Instagram. Look for us on Twitter. We're at TopShelf_Talk on Instagram, at Tyson++ on Twitter. And we'll talk to you soon.